Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Higurashi When They Cry Chapter 1. It's your boy, Karagol Gaming, and you know how we do things around here. I squatted down for a bit. When I came back to my senses, my entire room had changed drastically. The numbness in my head was gone, and slowly, I could tell blood was flowing to my extremities again. How long had I been squatting here? How many minutes? Or has it been hours? It was almost as if the hands on the clock had stopped moving the entire time my eyes were closed. That's how little time passed. Really? The air in the room wasn't filled with that madness from before, only a dull silence. Rena wasn't there pinning my arms, and Mion wasn't there about to inject me with a needle. No way. Could it be? All of it? Was a hallucination? There was no other presence in the room besides my own. It was the weirdest shit I had ever experienced. I was certainly with Rena and Mion. I doubted my sanity for a moment, but I also seized some sort of comfort. I guess that terrible ordeal was a hallucination. Neither Rena nor Mion, they wouldn't ever do something so terrible, would they? My head grew hot. I could tell my emotions were welling up. Why? That wasn't a reason to cry. Why? It was sorrow. Why was I sad? I don't understand. I don't understand. Kind to everyone, not discriminating against age or gender. Mion. That Mion was sprawled by the window in an unnatural pose. Eh? Blood stained her a deep red from her head down to her chest. The bright crimson smeared on the walls, that splatter had undoubtedly come from Mion. She always had that bright smile and was kind to me from the day I transferred. Rena. That same Rena was slumped at my feet and was making the same pool of blood as Mion. What? I couldn't comprehend what had happened. Did someone come to save me? Then they beat these two down with this metal bat? I finally noticed the weight in my right hand. How long had it been there? It was Satoshi's metal bat. It was covered in a deep red. There was no doubt that this was the weapon used to mutilate both of them. And I was holding that weapon. I was the only person in the house. Looking at this objectively, I don't think anyone other than myself could have done it. That's right. Keiichi Maibara. Of course I did it. I told myself gently, as if coaxing myself. Hey, me. There is no reason for you to remember it, nor is there any need to regret it. Eat or be eaten. You get that, don't you? Neither Rena nor Mion moved an inch. It wasn't just a split forehead and a trickle of blood, nothing that simple. The entire room was splattered with red, and that told me it didn't end with just 2 or 3 strikes. The depths of my mind were calm, but on the surface, I was panicking and agitated. Calm down, Keiichi Maibara. What happened to your usual calm self? Come on now. Do like you always do. Throw your head back and take a deep breath. Come on. Once. Twice. Breathe deeply. Calm down. Calm down. I chanted that over and over in my head and relaxed. Color came back to my vision and smells re-infused the air. At the same time, I remembered what happened when I blacked out. Rena and Mion had attacked me. They were about to inject me with whatever caused the same symptoms as Tomitake-san. But right before that happened, I fought back. I twisted my whole body and threw Rena as she was pinning my arms. Then, I followed through with my spin and rammed my foot as hard as I could into Mion's torso. It was soft. Rena tried jumping on me, so I tackled her as hard as I could and slammed her against the wall. I didn't let that brief moment of having them off balance slip by. Satoshi's bat was left carelessly by the side of my desk. Weep? At that moment, everything went pitch black. There was nothing recorded past this point in the videotape of my mind. No, that wasn't right. It wasn't that there was nothing recorded. It was recorded just fine. Just the other me inside myself had told me not to look and had turned off the TV. Just because the screen had gone black and I couldn't see it, didn't mean that the videotape within me hadn't recorded it. The TV was just off, but the video was still playing. The tape within me, creaking along, still playing. On the other end of that pitch black screen, that horrifying video was still playing on. Compared to this though, this scene right here before my eyes was still so difficult to take in. There was blood splattered everywhere on the walls, the two of them in these unnatural poses, not a sign of movement from them. I couldn't even tell if they were breathing. No matter what the circumstances were, my friends, these girls, I had attacked them. I may have even killed them. But if I hadn't done this, I would have been the one done for. Balancing that out in an imaginary scale, it felt odd that I had even felt bad about it. Even if it was a bit excessive, this was justifiable self-defense. The proof was all here. The two of them collapsed here and me on syringe. Me on syringe filled with some unknown drug that would certainly solve the mystery surrounding the incident with Tomitake-san. And from the fact that both of these were involved, they would be able to pick out the criminals one after the other. Still, I might be suspected for this, but that was just fine. Anyhow, now this should be a police affair. This shouldn't fade into the darkness like Rena's past incidents. As long as the police were involved, that should bring this to a close. They will probably revisit their investigation in the chain of incidents. Oishi-san would definitely get to the bottom of it. Meaning my wish of not wanting to die, of wanting to know the truth, that would be fulfilled in its most basic form. It was all a matter of time now. The Dr. Rena call should be getting here soon. I will confess everything to him. I need to contact Oishi-san. At that moment, I remembered. Besides the doctor, a director had also been called. It was easy to imagine that there was someone deeply involved with the incidents, judging from Rena and Mion's conversation. The ache in my chest, caused by the gruesome deed I had done, dissipated rapidly. It was not over yet. This place was no longer safe. Stay calm, Keiichi Maibara. It's not over yet. I needed to live long enough to tell the police of this incident. At that moment, I felt like I heard someone's voice from outside. Since people were speaking, it must mean that there was more than one person. I moved the curtain ever so slightly and peered outside. It was a bizarre fucking sight. About 4 or 5 grown men were all gathered at the gate. They very much resembled the 2 men who had assaulted me at the dam site today. Those 2 might even be among them. There was one person there wearing a white coat, but he didn't look like a doctor at all. My gut told me he was only in disguise, only posing as a doctor. That guy would probably ring the bell and get me to open the front door. Pretend to be a doctor to get me open the door, and the rest of them would rush in all at once. At that moment, I saw the car parked behind the men and my heart nearly skipped a beat. The white van. No mistaking it. That van? The one that had tried to run me down? The man in the white coat entered the gate and headed towards the front door. The rest of the men hid in the bushes and watched him. Jesus. I probably couldn't pretend that I wasn't home. Undoubtedly, they would just break the window and enter. At this point, I would just open the window and throw one of the bodies out. A message, motherfuckers, y'all are next. I need to get the fuck out of here somehow. Then, use a public phone to contact Oishi-san. Then, meet up somewhere. First of all, I need a weapon. Then shoes. But before all that, there was one thing I had to do. I had no intention of dying. I would live and reveal the truth about this nonsensical curse of Oyashiro-sama. But what would happen from here on, regardless of how determined I was, may bring about my demise. And that was why there was one thing more important than getting out of here right now. The note? I need to get that clock out quickly and take down the note hidden behind it. Damn it. That tape was sticking to it fast. It would be fine if it was torn a little. I opened up the slightly torn note and began writing another passage with a ballpoint pen. If I wasn't able to inform Oishi-san, then the only thing I could rely on was this note. I had never thought a piece of torn college-ruled notebook paper could be this reliable before. I had no time. I would only write what I knew right now. I needed to leave some sort of information that would lead them to uncover the truth. Rena and Mion are conspirators of the perpetrators. This was an undeniable fact. I still didn't want to believe it, but it was a fact. Anyway, I would leave all the information that would help them lead to finding the perpetrators. Fam, if you can see the van right now, can you also see the registration number? There are 4 or 5 adults, maybe more. They have a white van. This was everything I was able to see from the window. There may be more. There was also that unidentified person known as the director. To begin with, the term director didn't even mesh with Hinamizawa at all. If they were going to include the directors from the past incidents, then the only one is the construction foreman, the victim from the first murder. The very first victim in the chain of incidents. Killed in a lynching, his body divided into 6 pieces. His right arm was never discovered. The police should have confirmed that death. But Rena and Mion did both call him the director. They said director. They wouldn't use that term to refer to someone who was dead. The police would never even conceive that someone who was deceased could be involved. Could that be some sort of oversight? I didn't know. But even if I didn't know, it would be a big hint for Oishi-san. That's right. They needed to start fresh from the first incident. It wasn't just a simple dismemberment, but the start of this string of mysterious deaths that would follow. So then, there must be something hidden there. Please reinvestigate the victim from the dismemberment incident. He's alive. His death should have been established after an autopsy. Logically, you would think as much. But was that really the case? Could it have been some sort of ploy that they were able to deceive the police with? I shouldn't jump to conclusions, but he may still be alive. I had no time to ponder that right now. Oh yeah, there was something even more important I needed to write. Tomitake-san's death was from an unknown drug. That's right. That drug was an irreplaceable piece of evidence. No doubt, just by having this, everything would be uncovered. I couldn't just leave that vital clue lying on the floor. This syringe is proof. Writing that down, I stuck the syringe onto the back of the clock with plenty of tape. How much space do you have back there, dude? So it would absolutely not slip out and fall on the floor. Firmly! Firmly! The bell rang. They were here. I couldn't write anymore. But even still, there was one last thing I had to write. I have no idea why it has come to this. This may be the closest thing to the truth out of everything I wrote on this note. If you are reading this, then I am probably already dead. Though you may or may not find my body. If I was going to write out everything that could happen, either dying from the curse, or being demoned away, you who are reading this, please uncover the truth. That is my only desire. With this, my last will and testament was complete. It wasn't certain that I was going to die, but it was my final plea, just in case. I folded the note, stuck it back onto the back of the clock, and returned the clock back to its usual spot. I couldn't help but pray. Oishi-san, if something happens to me, I leave the rest to you. After that, I gazed silently at Rena and Mion. This was probably the last time we would ever see each other. Rena, Mion.
みんなのこと、本当に友達だと思ってたんだぜ。
But why did it have to end up like this? I never had any fun in my previous school. I only worried about standardized test scores, about if the school I had hoped to get into was really where I wanted to go, or just a safety net. That was all I talked about. It was a dull life. The people I called friends were also my rivals in studying, in competitions, in personal records, and standardized test scores. Everyone here taught me how unhealthy that lifestyle really was. This month was really fun. Making a fuss over lunch, making a fuss over the club, making a fuss over the festival. Something hot began dripping from my face. Uncontrollable tears. I should have no obligation to shed tears for them. But they wouldn't stop. Even if they were after my life, even if they were trying to kill me, everything that happened this month, I wouldn't forget it. Or it could be those happy days were all a facade as well. Or could it be those happy days were all a facade as well? Was it all a trap, meticulously orchestrated up until today to ensnare me? Could it have been that I just arbitrarily assumed that they were my friends? That couldn't have been the case. Both Rena and Mion, they really were my friends. Those happy days, there was nothing fake or unclear about them. Someone probably forced them to try kill me. Or their minds were taken over, possessed by the supernatural entity known as Oyashiro-sama. Regardless, both Rena and Mion, they were the best friends ever. And when they were coming after me, it wasn't of their own volition. But they weren't the kind of people to sell off their friends, no matter what means were employed to force them. And there was no way such a thing as being possessed by Oyashiro-sama could happen in reality. Then, did the real Rena and Mion come after me? What was I thinking? Yeah, you and me both, we're both wondering the same shit, mate. What a silly, dumb idea. Having beaten down both Rena and Mion, I was still debating if they were the real ones or fake ones. There was no real or fake. Only the reality that was before me. Rena and Mion were sprawled out at my feet. That was the only truth. I was only trying to twist the facts to my own benefit that I had beaten my friends to death. No matter how I spun it, it wouldn't change reality. Rena and Mion were both dead. It felt like my calm state, which was nothing more than a bluff, had receded, and in that opening, insanity was leaking out. I killed them. I killed them. Rena and Mion. I killed them. The doorbell rang again. The unrelenting echo pulled me back into a state of composure once again. I didn't have a moment to spare. Quickly, I need to get away. I didn't want to die. Here's what you do. You rush downstairs or use the phone that's right there to the left. Call Oishi-san, and if you have the chance, tell him you're in danger. Don't hang up, leave the phone as it is, and then either run away or open the door or whatever the fuck you gotta do, alright? I would uncover everything after that. The identity of whoever or whatever had pushed me this far. Even if I had to drink mud and eat grass. I would survive. I would survive. I would definitely survive. I killed Rena for that very reason. I also killed Mion. I went that far just to keep living. So I can't die. For my sake and for the sake of the late Rena and Mion, I have to survive. I ran towards the door and grabbed my shoes. The doorbell rang again as if to urge me on. Behind this single solitary door, they were there. Keeping quiet, I headed toward the kitchen. headed toward the back door, which they probably have surrounded. But before opening the back door, I put my ear to it and checked for people outside. No one? After I put on my shoes, I opened the door slowly as to not make a sound. Idiot. A piercing voice echoed out. He didn't even call Oishi-san. That voice stabbed through me, setting my hair on end. I had to run. Get out of here, Keiichi! One after the other, I felt stuff like rationale and intelligence, those things you use when you have time to spare, spill out of me. I didn't feel any pain from the branches scratching my arms and forehead. My autonomously pulsing heart also felt neither fatigue nor pain. My entire being just wished to live. There was nothing else it desired. It probably had no complaints whatsoever, so of course I wouldn't feel fatigue. I just ran. Just recklessly rushing in the direction I was already heading. Even if nobody was chasing me, I would still be running like this. There wasn't a thought in my mind about where I was headed. Turning around, I felt a presence right next to me. That presence was without a doubt chasing me like my shadow. If I even took one misstep, I would be devoured. That's what I thought. So I didn't turn around. I didn't stop. I ran at full speed. Doesn't sound like any Higurashi I fucking know. Quack quack? That was the chirping of the Higurashi telling me it was evening. Trying to tell me something. And then, I finally heard it. The wailing cry of the victims who didn't make it. Would I be joining them? Only the Higurashi knew. They knew everything. They definitely knew. So I ran towards where I could hear more of the Higurashi's chirps. But the farther I ran, the farther away their chirping became. I couldn't get near them. Why are y'all running away? Was it my fault? Was I the one to blame? Then I'll apologize. I'm sorry, just like Rena did. Shut the fuck up, Keiichi. I felt that only the Higurashi knew. The smoking room was filled with a cloud of cigarette smoke. The expensive smoke filter gave off some crackling electric noise, but it didn't seem like it was doing anything at all. Why do smokers have to be shoved down so far down this corridor where the sun didn't even reach? I recalled hearing that tax revenue from tobacco was about 1/10 of the municipality revenue. We were the most heavily taxed members of this municipality, so I really wish they would show us a little bit more respect.
どうしてこれがウーマン切りなんすか？街が狭くなっちゃうっすよ。
One of the younger detectives was having a staring contest with the mahjong magazine called Next Turn.
ウーマン切ってもテンパイ崩れませんから、海底にかけるなら両面で受けた方がチャンスあるんじゃないですか？
クマちゃん、川を見てください。ウーマンは全員切ってますから安牌なんですよ。終盤で K 点に走った誰かがダマで待ってたら嫌でしょ。
The kid let out another groan, put out his cigarette, and then took out another one.
納得いかないっすね。
I just don't care.
わざわざ自分で当たり牌減らすなんて。
ちなみに海底で当たり牌出しても論しちゃダメですよ。
え？どうしてですか？
Just then, I heard a voice coming from down the hall.
大石さん、いますか？一般の方から凱旋です。
ありゃ、こりゃどうも。それじゃ、ちょいと失礼。
どうして論しちゃダメなんすか？ああ、待ってくださいよ、大石さん！
The man sitting in the seat Oishi-san was heading towards waved at the telephone receiver.
凱旋です。 講習から。
どうもすいません。お待たせしました。大石です。もしもし。
大石さんですか？もしもし。
前原さんじゃありませんか。どうもどうも、こんにちは。
From the tone in Maibara-kun's voice, I already knew he was in a predicament. This was the first time Maibara-kun had phoned me, and he was calling from a payphone.
落ち着いてください。何がありました？
His voice was erratic over the line. He had completely lost his sense of composure. After checking that nobody else could hear, I prompted him in a hushed tone.
何があったんです？落ち着いて前原さん。今そこに近場の警官を行かせます。私もすぐそっちに行きますよ。
多分無理です。
His voice was quivering and hoarse. He wasn't surrounded by people even as he was making this call, was he?
前原さんは今公衆電話からかけてますよね。どこの公衆電話ですか？
There were no other sounds beside Maibara-kun's voice. It had to be a phone booth. I scratched out a note and thrust it at my colleague who was sitting across from me. Hinamizawa, phone booth. He understood quickly and hastily started on the internal lines.
落ち着いて前原さん。今どういう状況なんです？
It was best practice to avoid flustering someone panicking, but this was an urgent case. Maibara-kun didn't just get in trouble, get away, and then call me. He was in the midst of something dangerous right now. But yelling at Maibara-kun right now would just needlessly cause him to be even more frantic. Maibara-kun wasn't just calling to seek help. He was trying to tell us something more than that. And whatever that was, if I didn't get it from this call, I was certain there would never be another chance. My colleague pushed a note in front of me. There's only one booth in Hinamizawa. A patrol car is on the way. 5 minutes.
計りすぎです。警らには何人乗ってます？
2人です。
Not enough. If it was as I imagined, there were likely quite a few people surrounding my Maibara-kun. 5 minutes was too long.
南沢の駐在さんには電話しました。
定時巡回の時間です。家人は留守で連絡不能。
くそ。熊ちゃん、車を回してください。
了解っす。
もしもし、大石さん。
もしもし、大丈夫です。ちゃんと聞こえてますよ。
There was something wrong with my Maibara-kun. That wasn't a normal coughing sound. Vomiting? Or was it blood? Had he already been attacked? Was he injured?
前原さん、今そこに警官が向かってます。2、3分で到着しますから何とか持ちこたえてください。もしもし、聞こえてますか？前原さん。
I could hear on the other end of the line that he was having a coughing fit. The worst possible situation popped into my head.
前原さん、犯人は誰です？何人なんです？
俺も最初は人間が犯人なんだと思います。
I couldn't tell if that was a cough or vomiting.
大丈夫ですか？前原さん。
犯人は人間なんだって。お社様のたたりなんかないんだって。ついさっきまで。だけど、やっぱり。
It was an intense bout of coughing, then vomiting.
でも、やっぱり、お社様ってのは、いや、今。
前原さん、どうか。
なんかさっきからおかしいと思ってたんです。ずーっとつけてくるんですよ。走っても走っても走っても走っても影みたいにぴったりくっついて。だけども少しずつ俺の背中ににじり寄ってくるんです。
前原さん、そいつは今ひょっとして前原さんの後ろに？
後ろに、すぐ後ろに。
お願いです、前原さん。怖いのはわかります。ですが、あなたの後ろに誰がいるんです？
振り向けるわけないじゃないですか。
You're wasting your bars, man. You have to say that he was correct. Confirm his deductions, previous deductions. Rena and Mion were involved. The white van, those were Those are currently the ones who are pursuing you.
振り向いたら
It's all connected. Say it.
俺
Say that you found the drug. Say that it's in your room. Say that it's behind the clock. Say it.
怖いのはわかります。でも教えてほしい。ちょっと振り返るだけでいいんです。前原さんの後ろに誰がいるんです？
Right after I said that, I could hear him vomiting intensely. What followed was a nightmare
前
sound.
原さん、あんたまさか喉を引っかいてたりはしないでしょうね。
There was no answer, but I could hear something like scratching. There was a bang, as if someone was being hit. Maibara-kun had probably dropped the receiver. I could hear groaning and vomiting over the other end and the repeating of abnormal noise. What the fuck? Malware bites!
もしもしもしもし前原さんもしもーし
I knew how far away my voice would sound on the other end, but I couldn't help but shout. At that moment, I heard whispering coming from the other end. I couldn't tell what he was saying. From the way he was saying it, was he talking to himself? Or was he talking to someone there?
もしもし前原さん
Rather than whispering, it was some kind of mantra he was chanting over and over again. I focused my senses, trying to pick up what he was saying. What was he repeating? What exactly? Beep? Suddenly, the line went dead. Did he use up his time? It was because it was a payphone. It was because it cut out so abruptly. The last thing he said came out so clearly in my mind.
おいさん、車は OK っす。おいさん。
ごめんなさい。
おいさん。
That's what he was repeating over and over. He said, I'm sorry. I had a gut feeling. There was no longer a need to hurry. I could hear the chirp of the Higurashi spilling in from the open window. I should have been able to hear them this entire time. I just wasn't paying any attention. Why did I focus on them all of a sudden? Were they trying to tell me something? Only the Higurashi knew. That's how I felt. June 1983. In Hinamizawa, a remote village near Shishibone City, there was a murder involving 2 female students. The suspect is Keiichi Maibara, aged 1-something. The suspect called over his 2 female classmates, Rena Ryugu and Mion Shinzaki, to his house and beat them to death with a metal bat. I called them over. The scene of the crime was the suspect's room on the 2nd floor of his house. The inside of the room was covered with significant quantity of splattered blood, and there were signs of struggle with the victims. In addition to the scene of the crime, the entryway, living room, and kitchen all had traces of a struggle. At the entryway, the shoe rack and wall had evidence of being impacted by a strong blunt force. It is believed to have been the same bat as the murder weapon. Having no traces of blood, it is believed the destruction occurred before the murders. There is a possibility that the suspect overpowered his victims to keep them from fleeing. In the living room, the rug had been pulled back and thrown aside. It is hard to believe that this had a connection to the struggle with the victims, and thus the reason for this remains unknown. In the kitchen, what the fuck? The garbage bag was torn apart and its contents were spread out on the floor. I think you got your sentences flipped around with the scene. Whatever. Garbage was strewn about in the surrounding area, and handprints believed to belong to the suspects were discovered. It is believed that the suspect had for some reason taken out the garbage and struck it with his fists. The reason for this remains unknown. In addition, there was a note stuck to the fridge. The words, "Was there a needle?" written on it. The meaning behind this remains unclear. Just in case, the garbage was searched, but a needle was not discovered. Though the garage door was functional, it had been left open ever since the suspect moved in. The garage door was found closed. The suspect's fingerprints were discovered on the garage door. The reason behind this remains unknown. The suspect fled the scene of the crime. However, a patrolling officer, Hinamizawa local PD, found the suspect collapsed inside a phone booth. At the time of the discovery, the suspect was unconscious and in critical condition. He was rushed to the hospital for treatment, but did not regain consciousness and died 24 hours later. The results of the autopsy indicate that the immediate cause of death to have been hypovolemic shock. It was determined that the suspect had clawed at his own throat with his fingernails, and the resulting bleeding caused his death. With the similarity to the death of Tomitake-san the prior week, the police believe there to be a connection and have opened an investigation. However, due to the wishes of the local authorities, it will be a confidential investigation. Due to the abnormal nature of the death, it was suspected that drugs were involved, but as with Tomitake-san, no traces were discovered. What prompted all this remains inexplicable. As such, this case is being treated as an act committed on impulse. However, with several accounts of the suspect's bizarre behavior leading up to the incident, it is possible that this was premeditated. Separated from his group of friends, isolation, inexplicable behavior. Several days before the incident, the suspect began carrying around a metal bat. The suspect was observed displaying aggressive behavior as well as talking to himself at school. His classmates have actually heard portions of what he was saying. 2 days before the incident, the suspect declared to his parents the possibility of his own death. Due to these circumstances, the police have begun an investigation of the possibility that this crime was not committed on impulse, but was instead planned several days in advance. Afterwards, a note was found in the suspect's room that he had written himself. The note was written on 2 sheets from a B5 college-ruled notebook that had each been torn in half. And as if trying to conceal it, it was stuck hidden behind a clock on the wall. The contents are written in the appendix. The police believe it to be strongly related to the incident. The police changed their line of investigation based on the possibility that the suspect was involved in some sort of incident himself. However, no further clues were found, casting doubt on the credibility of the note. Was the crime impulsive or premeditated? With the situation unclear and no further developments, the case has been labeled as unresolved. However, the following year, suspicion arose regarding the nature of the note. The note was not written on 2 halves of B5 paper from 2 separate sheets, but was originally a single sheet of B5 paper. In order to erase several lines from the middle, someone had torn them out. Judging from the size of the letters, the missing section is estimated to be around 2 to 3 lines. It is highly probable that the person who eliminated the lines in question is not the suspect. In addition, judging from the traces of large quantities of the cellophane tape being stuck to the back of the clock, speculation that something other than the note was stuck there has arisen. The person who first discovered the crime was a detective rumored to have a connection with the incident, Kurohado Oishi. He underwent voluntary questioning, but denies involvement in any damages to the note. Interesting. The suspect's note. I, Keiichi Maebara, am in fear for my life. I do not know why they are after my life. The only thing that I do know is it has something to do with Oyashiro-sama's curse. Rena and Mion are conspirators of the perpetrators. There are 4 or 5 adults, maybe more. They have a white van. This is all on the first sheet. The section below has been ripped out. This is from the second sheet. The section above has been ripped out. I have no idea why it has become like this. If you are reading this, then I am probably already dead. Though you may or may not find my body, you who are reading this, please uncover the truth. That is my only desire. Keiichi Maebara. And that's it. I believe that is chapter 1 completed. What is this extra shit, man? This? All cast review session, chapter jump, view tips. What is this?
Hi, Higurashiの泣く頃に水、鬼隠しをプレイされた皆さん、お疲れ様でした。いかがだったでしょうか？
It was really good.
ちょっぴりでも楽しんでもらえたらとっても嬉しいです。
ちょっぴりも何も。あんなすごいバッドエンドで終わられたらプンプンでございますことよ。
プンプンなのです。今回の鬼隠しは全体の謎に挑む人たちが最初に通るお話だから、実質上のプロローグの位置づけなんだって。
そのプロローグがこんな凄まじいバッドエンドでございますの？
でもそういうのってあるじゃん。この最悪のバッドエンドを回避するためにプレイヤーさんが物語を模索していくのがこの作品の醍醐味だし。
まだ始まったばかりですよ。僕は次のお話が楽しみなのです。
これからどんな話が待ち受けてるんだろ
う。I'm very curious about that as well.
レナは聞いてる？
Really?
他のシナリオにはどんな展開があるんですの？
今回の鬼隠しではHinamizawaで近年起こった連続開始事件が紹介されたでしょ？
Correct.
例えばみーちゃんのシナリオではHinamizawaの古い歴史なんかが紹介されるんだって。
A prequel of sorts, maybe.
異常事態の連続ですっかり分かんなくなっちゃったけど、お社様のたたりってどういうものなのか。いや、そもそもお社様って何なのかあまり説明なかったからね。
よくは聞いてないんだけど、でもなんか嫌な予感。またしてもたたられそうな嫌な物語です。
ケイちゃんも大変だね。今度はどんなたたりにやられるやら。
でもどんなお話になるのか楽しみでございますわね。
いや遅れてすみませんね。
やあみんなお疲れ様。
お疲れ。あれ、ケイちゃんは？
ケイチ君はもう次のシナリオの台本読みに行っちゃってるんだよ。主人公だから大変だね。
あれ、残念ですね。ちょっとだけでも顔を出してくれればよかったのに。きっと喋るワード数が多すぎて居残りなのです。
前原さんのセリフだけで普通のアドベンチャーゲームなら全員分の量がありますからね。
I have no problem breaking the fourth wall, huh? Okay.
しかしケイチ君やレナちゃんなんか特にだけど大変な。
大変も何も大体バッドエンドでございますわ。
結局ケイチ君を襲ったのって正体は何なんだろう。
たたりに見せかけておいて実は人間の仕業ってのが僕の推理なんだけどね。
でもケイチは最後に謎の電話をかけてきていましたのです。
I'm like curious because the police reports didn't mention anything about his parents anyway. Just that the suspect had moved into the house and closed the garage door. Nothing signifying that his parents were living with him.
私もあの電話は変だと思ったね。あの時点でケイちゃんは犯人は人間だと確信してたはずなのにさ。
おかしな電話でしたわよね。なんかお化けに追いかけられてるみたいな。
あの電話だけだとやっぱり犯人って人間じゃなくてたたりなのかなって思っちゃうよね。
せっかくですから意見を出してみようじゃありませんか。じゃあ園崎さんから。
私は絶対に人間説。 Hinamizawaの怪しい昔語りかなんかになぞらえて誰かが起こしてる人為的事件だと思うね。
確かに毎年お祭りの日になると起こる連続開始事件なんて怪しいもんね。
その連続開始っていうのも何かの昔語りの再現なんだよ、きっと。
私はたたりだと思いましたよ。玄関で圭一さんが暴れたシーンとかラストの電話のシーンとかを見れば人間が犯人では説明がつきませんもの。
そういえばそうだよね。とても人間の仕業とは思えないシーンだったし。
僕はそれでも人間が犯人だと思うね。あの玄関やラストのシーンは追い詰められた圭一君の被害意識からの妄想じゃないかって思うんだ。
難しい言葉を使われても分かりませんわ。
つまり怖がりの圭一が見た幻だと言ってるのです。
じゃああのシーンの正体は圭一さんの後ろにいた謎の気配は何なんですの？
引っ掛けだよ、引っ掛け。
みーちゃん、引っ掛けってどういう意味？
富武のおじさまが言うようにさ、あのシーンは追い詰められたケイちゃんの被害妄想のシーンなんだよ。それを濃密に書くことでプレイヤーにたたりだと思わせようとする演出だから引っ掛けってわけ。
それを言われるとでも
まあそういう可能性もあるってことだよ。
だとすると犯人は複数で村ぐるみっていう劇中の大石さんの推理は正しいのかな。当の本人の大石さんはどう思いますか？
私ですな悩みますね。
あれ？僕はてっきり大石さんは人間説だと思ってましたけど。
劇中の私は犯人は人間だと断じてますが、人間が犯人だとするといろいろ不可解なことが多いんですよ。
例えばどんな？大石刑事さんの推理を聞かせてください。
まず人間が犯人だとすると絶対に動機が必要なんです。こういうことをして誰が得をするのかってことなんです。
つまりおじさま、人間が犯人なら連続開始事件を起こすことによって誰かが得をしなくちゃいけないってこと？
そういうダム開発の関係者が死ぬうちは利害も感じられましたが、近年の犠牲者はそれとも無縁です。第一、前原さんを殺して誰が得をするというんです？
なるほど、そう言われると僕も弱いな。
だってお金とかも取られてはいないんですもの。人間が犯人なわけありませんわ。
でもそうとばかりは限らないんじゃない？さっきみーちゃんが言ったように何かの昔語りの再現そのものに意味があるんだとしたら。
そういうこと。これは営利殺人じゃないんだよ。きっとこれは村の血塗られた歴史を再現するための何らかの儀式的殺人じゃないかなって思うわけ。
では聞きますですが、それを再現すると誰か得をするのですか？
Can we answer this question right now?
得をするんじゃなくてもっと心理的なもの。僕は何かの復讐じゃないかと思うね。土着的な何か。今回のシナリオでは語られなかった因縁だよ。
なるほど。過去にひどい扱いを受けた暴家の人たちが先祖の恨みを晴らすためにってな感じですか？
Could be.
私はそれにも反対ですね。
じゃあ何？大石さんはまさかたたり派なわけ？
そうですわそうですわ。刑事役の大石さんが言うんですもの。たたりに決まってますわ。
劇中で前原さんが言うように、お社様が竜宮さんや園崎さんに乗り移って悪さをしているって考えると一番辻褄が合うんです。残念ながら。
実はレナもオイさんと同じ意見なの。あんなに優しかったレナやミーちゃんが突然おかしくなるなんて、そうじゃなきゃ説明つかないもの。
そこはミオンの私が言うのも変だけど、やっぱり私なんだと思う。
This is so weird.
ミーの話の意味が説明が欲しいのです。
ああ、ごめん。つまりさ、これってすっごく残酷な話なんじゃないかって思うんだよ。
何意味？それってひょっとして。
突き詰めるとそうなるのかな。僕もちょっと疑ってる。
つまり竜宮さんも園崎さんも実は本当にああいう性格でこういうわけですか？
そんなの嫌ですわ。
Poor Satoko never mentioned anything about her brother. Weirdly enough.
これは全部タタリの仕業なんですのよ。レナさんもミオンさんもみんな優しい、いい人がいいのですの。
レナもそうだな。レナやミーちゃんって本当にいい人なんだって思う。きっと劇中で出てきた厳しいシーンは何かに取りつかれてたんだって思うの。
レナもタタリ派か。じゃあタタリ派の皆さんにお聞きしますけどさ、タタリが怒るからにはそれなりの理由があるんでしょ？無差別にたたるとは思えないな。そこんとこ説明できるの？
タタリはタタリですもの。人間の考えでは想像もつきませんわ。
さとこちゃん、擬人化された神様という存在は結局は人間の生み出したものなんだよ。だからその考え方も人間に理解できるようにできてる。ギリシャ神話の神様を見てごらんよ。泣いたり怒ったり嫉妬したり、とにかく人間的なんだよ。
つまりお社様もまた人間同様に何らかの利害に基づいてたたりをしている。
変な言い方になっちゃったけど、つまりはそういうこと。
触らぬ神にたたりなしって言いますからね。な一理あります。
つまりお社様にせよ人間にせよ何か理由があるはずということなのです。
でもリカ、その理由がはっきりしないならどうなりますの？
つまりはわかんないということ。そうだね。まだプロローグだもんね。明かされていないことがたくさんあるだろうし。
そうだね。現時点ではこれ以上の推理は難しいね。
いんにゃ、白黒つけないと納得できないな。
ミオンさんもこだわりますのね。
限られた状況で最大限に推理する。ちょっぴり部活感覚で面白いでしょ？
そう考えれば面白いかも。
じゃあ整理してみましょうか。私はたたり派です。富武さんは人間派でしたよね。
ええ、僕は人間が犯人ってことでいきます。
私も人間犯人説。もちろんタタリというファンタジーは嫌いじゃないよ。だけど今回の事件に限ってはタタリの線は薄いね。
人間派が2人出ましたね。竜宮さんはたたり派でしたよね。
はい、レナとさとこちゃんはたたり派ですね。
So that's 3 for curses and 2 for people.
たたり派ですわよ。レナさんやミオンさんのことを悪魔みたいに言う人の方がよっぽどたたりに合うべきですの。
そりゃあまあ、私も自分のキャラがそんな悪魔みたいなやつだとは思いたくないけど、部活モードの時にはクールでなきゃ。感情論だけで選ぶと大やけどするよ。
まあまあ、どっちを選んだっていいじゃないですか。
あれ、リカちゃんがまだだね。どっちだと思う？僕は お社様が悪い神様だとは思わないですよ。
あれ、面白い意見だね。
たたってばかりの悪い神様なら祀るのは嫌なのです。僕はたたるよりご利益のある神様の方が好きなのですよ。そっか、リカちゃんって巫女さんをやってるんだよね。うん、いい意見。
じゃあ何？リカちゃんはお社様じゃないって思うなら、やっぱ犯人は人間って思うわけ？
そういうことにしますのです。
3 all.
ありゃまあ、票がざっくり分かれましたね。たたり派と人間派で半々ですか。
Rena-chan, just for the reference, what did the test players who played the beta version think? What the fuck? Okay. The voice actors just gave up. They just went home, dude.
どうすんのさ。これじゃ意見は半々。
It means we gotta play through the second chapter.
決着がつかなくて面白くないよね。
裁判官が奇数なのはつまりそういうことだからね。あと一人意見が欲しいな。
あ、ならちょうどいいかな。ケイチくん本人に聞いてみない？電話で。たたり殺された本人の意見は貴重ですよ。
そうと決まれば早速電話ですわ。
もしもし、ケイチくん、レナです。今お仕事お忙しいですか？
ああ、忙しいぞ。シナリオが1本終わって一休みって思ってたらすぐに次のシナリオだもんな。
ケイちゃんどんな感じ？忙しいって？
うん、拗ねてる。
聞こえてるぞ、こら。お前ら打ち上げ会でいいよな。
I really like Keiichi's voice actor.
俺も出たかった。
収録の残りゼリフ数で僕たちの誰か一人でも抜いたらケイイチも参加できるのです。
リカ、あの量でそれは不可能ですわ。
Hmm?
あ、それでごめんね、ケイイチくん。今回のシナリオでね、ケイイチくん、死んじゃったじゃない？犯人は誰だろうねってそういう話をしてるの。
つまりさ、ケイちゃんを殺したのは人間かお社様のたたりかってことで意見が分かれちゃってるのよ。
本当にごめんね。台本読みで忙しいところ。ケイイチくんはどっちだと思うかな？
そんなの決まってんじゃねえか。
The curse.
どっち？
どっちなんてもんじゃねえよ。
Well, when you put it like that.
村の怪しげな奴らに狙われて、さらにお社様とかいう怪しいのにたたられて、人間もたたりも全部、これは何かの嫌がらせか。
かわいそかわいそです。今度頭をなでなでしてあげますですよ。
結局意見が分かれちゃったね。
私ももう一度考え直してみます。見落としがあるかもしれませんので。
それでは引き続き日暮らしの泣く頃に水をお楽しみくださいね。
And with that, we are completely done with the chapter 1 of Higurashi Monday Cry. I will see you guys for the second chapter of this game. I'm not sure when it will come out, but it all depends on the reception and how the game releases, how my pipeline is looking basically. But rest assured, we are gonna get to it. We always finish what we start, fam. You know what I'm saying? I'll see you guys for another project real soon. Let me know what you thought of this project, man. I'm out of here. Love y'all and deuces.